From broken down minis to building a business from scratch. To get to work, I needed a car. What I could afford, having spent everything we had on our little cottage, a beautiful little cottage, all I could afford was the worst rust bucket Mini I'd ever seen. It was an ancient orange and rust Mini 1000. It had holes in the floor. The body was pockmarked with rust. Seats were falling apart. And very occasionally it would start. Its one redeeming feature was it had an MOT, although God knows how it got one. And for £250, it was mine. A few weeks later, it died, but mercifully, Dad lent me the money to buy Mum's white Golf Mark II 1.4. That Golf felt like relief itself. Fun, agile, practical, respectable. I've always had a fondness for Golfs, ever since the yellow one, rest in peace, thanks Julia, and borrowing Mum's blue 1.5. The white Golf, I felt, was a proper car again. So by then we had a lovely house, a nice car, but trouble at work. Dad's boat building college was thriving. He'd done a fantastic job with it. It was famous worldwide and a joy to walk through so many wooden boats in build. In fact, they had more boats in build there, wooden boats, than any other yard in Europe. With a youthful arrogance, I thought that because I could steer ships around the world, I could run a business. And when Dad didn't listen to my ideas, I saw it as him being stubborn, not as me being ungrateful. And of course, the truth, as always, lay somewhere in between. I did have the occasional good idea, and my father could have listened more. But unfortunately, one day in a rage, I stormed out of his office, just fed up with being not listened to yet again. I hurled my briefcase through his window and carried on marching as the glass and the briefcase landed in his lap. It was childish, shameful looking back. I didn't think so at the time. I was just cross and frustrated. And that was me quitting. Going back to sea felt wrong. So I took my cousin Andrew's advice, who told me, you can sell anything, Mark. I joined Sun Alliance, cold calling and selling pensions on commission. There's no salary. Within 3 months, I was top of the sales board. And within 7, I was offered a branch manager role. It was good money, but it was dull and not what I wanted for my life. What to do? Well, by then, Dad and I had reconciled. We'd gone through many months of not speaking, not because he wasn't speaking, because I felt wronged. And it was, like I say, it was childish, it was stupid. And something I only grasped years later, when I think of my own children, how hard that must have been for him. Horrible. Anyway, I had spent a long while, whilst with Dad, under the tutelage of quite possibly the best cabinet maker in the country, teaching me boat furniture making. I added 2 and 2 together and decided I'm going to build furniture. Not boats, let's leave them to Dad. He's good at that. I just felt the pull of creating something tangible. I'm not quite sure why. I was terrible at woodwork at school. Really, great at metalwork, but wood always seemed to elude me. The grain would always be going off in a direction I didn't understand. I'd be working against it. bits would fall off, and my creations, sometimes it was difficult to guess what they were supposed to be, quite honestly. Pretty bloody terrible. And I didn't enjoy it because I just couldn't master it. Don, my teacher, was a gold medal winner in the World Skill Olympics for teaching the best cabinet maker, and a member of the Worshipful Company of Carpenters. He was a gentle and patient but firm teacher. And what he taught me was that sharp tools and confidence, cutting on the line, that was what made all the difference. The sharp tools. So the early lessons were about how to sharpen your tools, etc., etc. And I made a tool chest, dovetailed all the way round. I made my own oar. It's still hanging up in the house here, all by hand, with a bolo plane that we'd also made. They were great exercises, dreamed up by my father. And so I genuinely had some skills. I could build furniture by hand. I couldn't design it, of course, didn't have a clue. I was a navigator, why would I have? But I agreed to rent some space from Dad, and off I went. To do so, I sold the beloved Tasborough cottage to raise money, and I used the surplus to start the business because I couldn't pay myself any money. I needed some money in the bank. That's most often the way all of us start businesses, from hand to mouth. The cottage had been so special, the beams, the bricks, the inglenook fireplace. It was just so full and of character, and the garden that had been planted over hundreds of years. It's such a rare thing. It was so beautiful, bursting with colour, and it hurt to sell it, but new dreams demanded sacrifice. So at first it was just me, and then I got a youth training school lad who later became my production manager and was with me for my entire 23 years. And then steadily I worked up to 6 men, and I courted high-end retailers like Joshua Taylor in Cambridge, Heels, Selfridges. My designs, as I say, certainly not brilliant, but the build quality, I guess the keenness impressed them. So, having learned a little bit about sales and just feeling confident in what I was doing, I said, well, you don't like that design, but you can see that we can build what you want. So what is it you want? And how much would you pay for it? They told me. I built it on spec. I remember the first order to Joshua Taylor. I took it down there in the little Luton van that I hired. Showed it to them. Yep, that's lovely, Mark. We'll buy that. We'll have, I can't even remember, I think it was 3 sets. And so it was that we started. And then we got an order from Selfridges for some particular table design. That was actually one of my designs. And then when you start to go into stores, you say, well, we're in Joshua Taylor, we're in Selfridges. And shortly after that, we started making for Heels. It wasn't until later when I had my own retail outlets that I realised finding really good, keen suppliers who delivered when they said they were going to deliver at the quality and price they said they were going to deliver at, not as straightforward as you might think. Not as straightforward as, frankly, it should be. I didn't know that then. I still felt a little bit on the back foot. Anyway, we steadily grew. The foundations were laid. And soon we partnered with a company called Multi-York. Then they had 6 showrooms, and we built their cabinet furniture. And we built all their cabinet furniture as they grew to 72 showrooms. Charles Pugh, the owner, became a model of mine, and at the same time, a cautionary tale. I very much liked him. I admired his style, but I also learned where it could mislead. With success came some more cars. I traded the Golf for my first company car, a white 1988 Ford Fiesta 1.2. Gutless. Looked okay with racing stripes back in the day, but it was reliable. That freed up cash and bought me a gold TR7 convertible. It was old but decent, and I wanted something that kept me connected to my youth. I was 24, I was still a kid, I wasn't ready for this. On my first journey back from collecting the TR7, it nearly killed me. It had a worn suspension mount, all the bushes were absolutely shot. And I'm driving along and the rear axle just sent me skittering in the rain. But I caught it, got it home, and with my brother-in-law John's help, I changed the bushes. Probably one of the bravest mechanical jobs I've ever managed. Not a natural mechanic. Rust, fixing bodywork, spark plugs, distributors, that was probably my limit. But I loved that car. And I loved taking little Amy in the passenger seat, just the two of us. By now, quite quickly, we outgrew the workshop I was renting from Dad, and we moved into 3 old pigsties at Lord Somerleyton's estate. Really amazingly beautiful spot. Freezing in winter, and the layout was really limiting. We grew to 18 men, rented more space, added a loo block and an office. Whoa, an office, rather than sitting in the corner of the factory in the cement dust from the floor, the dust obviously from the woodwork, and we were getting a number of machines at this stage. Emma was running the accounts, which she did brilliantly. She's natural at admin. And I split my time between design, sales, endless trade shows, and still building the furniture. And steadily we built an export market. I fell into kitchens just because somebody said to me at a show we were doing, the Royal Norfolk show, "Oh, Mark, can you build me a kitchen?" Yes, okay. I said, "Show me what you've been quoted," and they'd been quoted by Smallbone, which was extraordinarily well thought of then, and the sort of top kitchen brand. There's several now, but back in the day they were the big thing. And they, unbeknownst to me, had quoted 40,000. Sadly, it was unbeknownst. I costed it out, and it was 22,000, a small fortune for us at the time. It was a very big farmhouse kitchen, curved oak doors. It was beautiful. Farmhouse table, big, thick 2-inch top, cleated ends, lined oak, which was all the rage in the 80s. It was a very, very lovely kitchen, and we made a lovely job of it. The units we made were completely solid oak. And the customer was delighted. And from there, we got recommendations. And so we carried on building kitchens, and we fell into this kitchen business. It wasn't our main business by any means, but it provided a nice bit of growth. Because for me, as a salesman, the answer's yes. What's the question? And I've been teaching sales guys underneath me that answer for many years now. Building the company was pretty brutal. That's not a story that's singular to me, that's for sure. 14 to 15 hour days, 7 days a week. I was at the hospital for my son James's birth. It was a Sunday. And then I was straight back to finish our first big multi-York order. Quality and delivery to me was sacred. And that reputation fueled our growth. Design was becoming my first joy. At first, my designs were ordinary, but slowly, because I was working with top designers like Lawrence Neese and then John Jenkins at Heels, I absorbed by osmosis their aesthetic. I learned about proportion, balance, inspiration. I remember Lawrence once telling me, as I balked at making a very expensive and complex bureau, I said, "Why do you want us to build that? Can't you ask somebody else, Lawrence?" Because we were a big supplier, then had a good relationship with him. He said, you can't just build the bestsellers, Mark. I thought about it. I said, okay. I said, but why do you want it? You're hardly going to sell any of these. I remember it so well. He sat in my office. It would take us hours and hours we'd spend poring over the minutest detail of the designs to get it just right. And Lawrence turned to me and he said, Mark, our job isn't just to sell furniture. Our job is to inspire people, to excite people. And some of the pieces we have got to do that job of inspiring them. So when they come in, they see this bureau and they go, oh, wow. No, they may not buy it, but it puts us in their mind. And I remembered that lesson throughout all our time as we became a retailer in later years. It was a very good lesson. He was so right. Inspiration builds a brand. Anyway, we would work through the night to meet our shipments. I remember once my foreman's father arrived at 3 a.m, angry that his 19-year-old son wasn't home, understandably. Fair point, I thought. But I was there too, of course, hands dirty, working side by side. The Navy taught me that. You learn the job the hard way, and when there's a job to be done, you get on and you do it yourself. And you lead by example, not by standing back, and that's not the way to lead. And of course, I knew what I was doing. I knew how to build the furniture. I'd been working with these guys at the start of the business on the benches, in the machine shop, and then latterly in the polishing shop as I taught myself to polish alongside our polishers. Eventually, another car came along, a white 1983 Fiesta XR2. Now that was something. I don't remember much about driving it. I was just working so much, it was a blur, but I do remember collecting it. The dealer tossed me the keys to his nearly new Porsche 911 and said, yeah, have a drive in that if you like. I'll drive the XR2 to your house. Treat it like you own it. I didn't need a second. Didn't need to be asked twice. I got in that car. He told me later, flames came out of the exhaust as I shot off, and it was a speed like nothing I'd felt before. It was intoxicating. The taste of that Porsche and the speed stayed with me. The TR7 went as a trade-in. The XR2 became Emma's. Life lessons. Anger burns bridges. Humility builds them. Youthful arrogance thinks it knows best. But real success comes from listening, adapting, and grinding through the hard yards. Build with quality, keep your promises, and say yes to opportunity. Then figure out how you're going to do it.